Have you ever made a promise to someone, or even to yourself, to do a certain thing?
Promises are a way of making assurances that you will follow through on achieving a specific goal.
In a story, promises can be an interesting way of developing compelling character motivation, and for driving a plot forward. Promises show us what a character is made of, what they care about, and what goals they intend to accomplish, and even what their relationships mean to them.
Within the Star Wars prequel trilogy, there are 4 major plot points I've noticed that hinge on promises made between 2 or more characters, and the results are not always what you might expect. So, let's see what we find when we take a closer look.
Naturally, the first promise comes from none other than Anakin Skywalker. He starts off in the story as a young slave boy living on Tatooine, but despite this tragic and austere situation, he does have a very strong, loving connection with his mother, who is also a slave. Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn comes along and sees great potential in Anakin, and certain that this remarkable young boy is a virgin in the Force, Qui-Gon wants to train Anakin to be a Jedi.
I will.
Anakin wins his freedom by finishing first in a pod race, which opens for him the opportunity to go with Qui-Gon. But the realization soon hits Anakin that his mother is unable to come with them, and he is now faced with a very difficult decision. Now, what is the one and only thing that could possibly motivate Anakin to actually leave his mother and the deep, caring relationship they have with each other? The chance to fulfill his long-time dream of becoming a Jedi. But really, still, the only way he could justify to himself actually going through with leaving his mother, the only motivation he could give himself to turn around and leave with Qui-Gon, was by making the promise to her and himself to eventually return as a powerful Jedi and free her from slavery.
Come back and free you, Mom. I promise.
He didn't really want to say goodbye forever. Who would? But this is the hope he had to fill himself with. And albeit somewhat naive, it is the promise he had to make to cope with the sorrow of parting with his mother to follow his dream. And though it's as innocent as can be, and completely rooted in a passion for helping people, we see Anakin fostering the notion that Jedi can use their powers to, well, make things the way they want them to be. Which is something Anakin never really outgrows.
We should be patient.
And as we see, when Anakin is first brought before the Jedi Council and given their test, they are impressed with his talents, but ultimately decide not to allow him into the Order because of his fears of loss compounded by his age.
Much fear in you.
Qui-Gon is surprised, but with his unwavering faith in Anakin as the chosen one who will restore balance to the Force, he decides to take it upon himself to train Anakin on his own, apart from the Jedi Order. However, as fate would have it, tragedy strikes, and Master Qui-Gon dies while fighting the Sith warrior Darth Maul during the Battle of Naboo. Qui-Gon's dedicated apprentice Obi-Wan manages to dispose of Darth Maul and rushes to his dying master's side to comfort him in his final moments. Convinced of Anakin's importance and potential, Qui-Gon's dying wish is that Obi-Wan train Anakin in the ways of the Jedi. And here, Obi-Wan makes his solemn promise to Qui-Gon that he will indeed train Anakin. So, in light of the threat of the newly returned Sith now being confirmed, the Jedi vote to officially allow Anakin into the Order, and to allow Obi-Wan to fulfill his master's dying wish and take the boy as his Padawan.
The Council have granted me permission to train you.
As kids, Anakin and Padmé established a bond of friendship during the brief time they knew each other. However, with both of their busy lives, they never did see each other again after that. In fact, 10 years go by, and by this point, a galactic crisis has emerged in the form of a separatist movement. Now, as a senator for Naboo in the Galactic Republic, Padmé stands in fierce opposition to the Republic's proposed Military Creation Act, with which to counter the growing threats of war. And as she takes this controversial stance, she has found herself the target of an assassination attempt. And because of this serious threat on her life, kindly old Chancellor Palpatine insists that she be put under the protection of the Jedi, to which she only capitulates when it is suggested that her old friend Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan be assigned to her.
It was her idea.
So now that she has promised to honor Palpatine's request, Padmé and Anakin find the opportunity to get back together as young adults, which leads to them establishing a romantic relationship. Luke and Leia have to be born somehow, right? That's maybe more of agreeing to a favor asked, but still pretty close.
Do it for me, milady, please.
And so, after years of training as a Jedi, we eventually come to a point where Anakin begins to embark down the path of the dark side.
Tell us now!
So how does this begin with a promise? Going back to Anakin's promise to free his mother, it turns out by the time of Episode 2, he never got that chance. His Jedi duties kept him from it. And as I mentioned, it was a promise made out of naivete. It was the only incentive he could give himself to leave his mother, but in reality, it unfortunately just wasn't practical. However, when Anakin starts having troubling dreams of his mother in danger, he eventually goes and finds her on Tatooine. However, sadly, not in time, and she dies in his arms. Though he never was able to go back and free her, naturally, he still wishes he could have saved her before anything bad had happened to her. And what's more, he also wishes he could have actually saved her from dying in that moment. He thinks this ability is possible because Palpatine has been fostering within him a sense of entitlement and fueling his ego. And with Anakin's unprecedented potential, leading him to believe he can be powerful beyond his own imagination. And being that Anakin's biggest passion in life is protecting his loved ones, he's been steered into seeing this as the ultimate way to protect them, and to protect himself from the pain of losing them. Never being able to fulfill his promise to go back and free his mom had a big impact on Anakin's psyche. Anakin has also been choosing to stuff down his feelings rather than acknowledging and processing them, because he refused to deal with them, not because he was supposed to. So by the time his mom died, he couldn't handle it. And all those built-up pressures around his fears, guilt, and unfulfilled hopes exploded in the form of his rage and anguish, which he gave into and acted upon by taking revenge on the whole camp of Tusken Raiders, even though he knew he shouldn't. Subsequently, this evil act provides Anakin with a taste of the power surge the dark side could give him in that moment, which opened the gates to an even more tangible craving for these unnatural powers.
Well, I should be.
Powers to just stop loss
Someday I will be.
from ever happening
I will
again.
be the most powerful Jedi ever.
So, in order to prevent any more pain from personal loss before it happens, Anakin promises to himself, to Padmé, and his mother to learn how to stop death in order to eliminate any possible threats to his loved ones and his clinging attachments to them. And when he later has a dream of Padmé dying, his quest snowballs until finally he becomes obsessed with finding this power,
Save people from death.
now enslaved to his own selfish cravings,
And I know I shouldn't.
which brings him to the precipice of his fall.
You can't promise me anything because you don't have anything to promise.
So, what do you think of these promises and their effects on the story? Do promises always have a positive outcome? Thanks for watching and share your thoughts.